Breaking tonight, attorneys for the 6 Baltimore cops accused of killing Freddie Gray want this prosecutor off of this case, alleging that she is biased and demanding that the charges against these officers be dropped. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. Attorneys for the so-called Baltimore 6 say DA Marilyn Mosby has to go, alleging her husband is a city council member in charge of the district where Freddie Gray was killed, so they believe she has a vested interest in pleasing those constituents. Also alleging that she has personal relationships with witnesses in the case, and that she is close friends with the attorney for Freddie Gray's family. This on top of the revelation earlier that the DA's chief investigator was demoted by the Baltimore Police Department, had a SWAT team sent to his home for a drunken incident involving a gun, and after he became uncooperative with the police, was actually tased by them. The same cops he's investigating, which raises some questions about his objectivity. That news breaking as we heard directly from the U.S. Attorney General today that she will investigate Baltimore's police force for excessive force and alleged discriminatory policing. Joining us now, Sheriff David Clark of the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office. And Andy McCarthy is also here. He's a former federal prosecutor and a National Review contributing editor. Thank you both so much for being here. Let me start with you, Andy. The chances of this motion to get her booted off of this case are what?
Zero. There's no way that this motion will succeed at this point. I think they're building a record so that later they can make a bigger claim about prosecutorial and investigative misconduct. But there's no basis to get people kicked off a case because they have political motivations. It's a political system. That's how she gets elected in the first place.
Right.
Or think about it, if you're in a small town, if it was a basis to kick somebody off a case because you knew the witnesses or you were close friends with people involved in the case, they could never have a case.
Right, and nor could she ever have a case where her husband is the city councilman for the Western District.
Right.
Anything affecting the Western District, she'd be booted off. I agree with you legally that motion's not going anywhere. But I want to talk to both of you about the allegations they're making now about, in particular, the lead investigator in this case. Sheriff Clark, this guy, his name is Avon Mackel. In 2009, he was stripped of his command post by the Baltimore PD, that he reportedly became drunk and despondent and wound up getting tased by the cops at home for erratic behavior. And now this is the man chosen to investigate them. Is this a problem?
Highly problematic. He shouldn't have gotten anywhere near this case. She should have known that. This thing's been bungled from the very beginning. But this move by the mayor to call in the DOJ is nothing more than trying to deflect away from her own leadership failure. She once again continues to demoralize Baltimore's finest when she's going to need them most. She did it once when she put them out there in harm's way the night of the riot, then told them to stand down, and they had to sit by and watch looters and thugs trash police cruisers, break into businesses, set the town on fire. Now she backed the bus over them by calling in the DOJ. If she's been the Baltimore mayor for 4 years, Megyn, since 2010. If she had some inkling that there were some issues of patterns and practices within the Baltimore Police Department, she should have said something earlier on. The commissioner, Baltimore commissioner, has been there since 2012. She should have first said to him, I want you to do a top-to-bottom investigation of your agency and report to me within 90 days. And if there are red flags, I want to know a corrective action plan from you before she goes to the DOJ.
And instead, she's jumping up and down, welcoming the DOJ in, which, Andy, as you've been pointing out to our viewers for months, years, this is what they did. The DOJ loves to come in. They want to take over policing in this country.
And not only that, Megyn, 2 months ago, the Obama White House said that the Baltimore Police Department was a model American police department. They said that they had the best policies and the best training methods in the United States.
And they have, you know, the commissioner, police commissioner is African American, the mayor is African American, the department is majority minority.
Right.
And so, you know, I mean, one wonders where they get to the discriminatory policing. It seems to boil down to the Freddie Gray case. And yet that case, at least part of it, it may be unraveling. We talked last night on this show about the switchblade or the knife that Freddie Gray was arrested for having. This is what started it all. She's charging a couple of these officers with false imprisonment because if he had the knife on the left, it was illegal. If he had the knife on the right, it was legal. If it has sort of the pop-up switch mechanism, it's illegal under Baltimore city law. The one on the right that requires more of a spring or more of a help, that's legal. And now the lawyers for these cops are saying it was a switchblade. Produce the knife. We'll show it to you. There's no false imprisonment here.
Right. Well, I think that this is one of the most dangerous things that the Baltimore prosecutor has done, because what everybody has to understand is that even if this were an illegal or were a legal knife, it's a good faith mistake of law by the police officer. Police officers have a right to be wrong. They have a right to act on reasonable suspicion. If you don't give the police that latitude, you cannot protect a community. And what they're basically telling these police officers is, if you make a mistake, if you do the things that you think you need to do in the way of good policing to protect the community, you stand to be prosecuted, you stand to be sued, you stand to be disciplined. It's really unbelievable.
What of that, Sheriff Clark? I mean, speak about the effect on police officers in charging that you falsely arrested somebody because you may have been wrong about a knife being a switchblade when maybe it wasn't, but maybe it was.
I've never seen anything like this. There are a lot of times that officers make arrests based on probable cause, and it's a different standard of probable cause to make an arrest than to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And you take the case over to the prosecutor, and oftentimes the prosecutor will say, yeah, you know, there's some stuff going on here, but I don't have enough to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, and I'm not going to issue a criminal charge. You don't then investigate the law enforcement officer for false imprisonment and other criminal charges. You know, there might be some standing somewhere in a civil, as a civil tort for that sort of thing, but it doesn't belong in a criminal court. This thing is starting to unravel, and all the defense attorney has to do, as Mr. McCarthy knows, he doesn't have to prove that these 6 officers are innocent. He just has to create doubt. And when you do a sloppy investigation, and I've investigated homicides, and I've been a part of charging conferences, you attack the defense attacks the investigation to create that doubt. And that's what I see going on here, and it's going to be highly unlikely, I believe, that she's going to be able to prove a murder charge and a manslaughter charge beyond a reasonable doubt.
And you've actually made the point, Andy, that she's charged the one cop with depraved indifference murder and also with criminally negligent homicide.
Right.
One means sort of you had a more actively, you know, wrong-headed
One is intentional murder, and the other isn't.
Okay,
the other is a mistake.
So why is that a problem? You know, she's going to pursue 2 different theories.
Juries convict when prosecutors convince them that the prosecutors, know what happened in the case and prove it compellingly. If you file charges that are colliding with each other, if you ask the jury or present the jury with charges where your theory of guilt is exactly the theory of innocence for the other charge, if the charges theoretically are inconsistent with each other, that conveys to the jury that the prosecutor hasn't figured out what happened in the case. And you can't get a jury to convict unanimously beyond a reasonable doubt, as the sheriff just said, if the prosecutor doesn't know what happened.
Even the DA isn't sure. Guys, thank you both so much.
Thank you, Megan.
Well, as the charges against the Baltimore 6 appear to be in jeopardy, some pundits are now arguing that really most cops are bad.
We can't continue to frame law enforcement and the police forces in America as simply a bunch of good-natured people and there happen to be a few bad apples amongst them. That's not the right analysis.
And yet, a somber scene in New York City today reminded folks here of the dangers law enforcement face on the streets every day as they try to protect us. A final farewell to one of New York City's finest, and Congressman Peter King on what needs to be done here to keep police safe. Plus, big week for the GOP. And now, the top polling presidential possibility is about to break his silence with the Kelly file. Charles Krauthammer is here next to weigh in on the latest twist in the race to the White House.